Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. So if you please rise, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone here in Lincoln and those across the Crete Schaefer Hunt family across the country joining us with Facebook on this year's 2019 induction ceremony of our 5 newest Patriot Fleet trucks. It's always a great day to recognize veterans here on Veterans Day, and so I'm going to start by doing that. So if anybody in the room who's a veteran, if you'd please stand, and we'd like to recognize you for your service. Including all of you gentlemen. I think just as importantly, any of the family members of veterans, husbands, wives, children, relatives of veterans, if you'd all please stand. Thank you for your support to veterans, because without you, we all know our veterans couldn't do anything. You know, I'm going to start this year, much as I have in the past, and give everyone a little bit of a reminder of why we're here today and how Veterans Day got started. You know, Veterans Day started in 1918. 1 year after the armistice of World War I, which took place on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1917, that it was the armistice of the Allied forces with Germany to end World War I, the war to end all wars, they said at the time. But we all know another war came after that, and then after the Second World War, President Eisenhower said we need to recognize more of the veterans beyond World War II, so he changed it to Veterans Day. And in his proclamation on Veterans Day, he said, "We want this day to be in place in order to ensure all proper and widespread observance of this anniversary. All veterans and all veterans organizations and the entire citizenry will wish to join hands in a common purpose." And that common purpose is to thank all of our veterans. So thank you. We appreciate that. You know, as we've also discussed in the past at this event, as each year goes on, it seems more and more we as a country are less focused on our veterans. You know, and some of the greatest freedoms we enjoy are because of the sacrifices of our veterans and for protecting those freedoms from when we started our country, you know, back in the late 1700s. You know, today we have about 18 million veterans. Over 50% of those veterans are age 65 or older. And that's less than 7% of our overall population. You know, today we often think of Memorial Day as that first weekend to go out boating or camping. We think of July 4th, a nice day for a barbecue and a party, and sometimes Veterans Day, just another day in our work day or another day off work. But yeah, I think it needs to be more than that. And you know, reflecting upon that, I tried to ask myself, why is it that way, and why am I too at times guilty of not remembering on those days, you know, the people that those days were designed for? So I kind of, you know, took a look back and said, well, what's changed? You know, I'm the son of a veteran. I had an uncle in World War II, an uncle in the Korean War, a father-in-law in the Vietnam War, my brother-in-law in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I still find myself being that way. And, you know, I looked and thought, you know, 40 years ago when I was a kid, things were a little bit different. We had over 30 million veterans, so 12 million more than we have today. And less than 10% of those were over the age 65. You know, today we have about 1.4 million active service members. That's less than half of the entire U.S., 1/2 of 1% of the entire U.S. population. We also do have 850,000 reserve members, but out of those members, we still too have over 200,000 of our service members that are deployed to other countries, still protecting our freedom. Yet it's easy for us to forget about that because, you know what? We're not as close to service members as we were years ago. We're not personally impacted by them as much as we used to be. You know, and I think as humans we have a hard time recognizing and remembering something we don't experience or we don't have a personal tie to. But then I thought about it more and I thought, well, this is exactly what the veterans wanted. They wanted to go out and fight for our freedoms and to make us the greatest country in the world with the greatest military in the world, so less of us would have to go do that. And so I think it makes it even more special for those few that serve today that we should honor you and say thank you. So we do appreciate that. To all of those 1.4 million currently serving and for the 18 million veterans that are still out there each and every day. We may not remember you as much as we should, but certainly it's because of you that we've come to this point in our country. So today we are proud, again, and I'm so proud of being part of a company that looks for a way to honor you all each and every day so that we can experience you each and every other day. And that was one of the reasons we started the Patriot Fleet in 2012, so we could have a personal experience for all of us here at Crete, Schaefer, Hunt Transportation, whether we're a veteran ourselves or just a member of the family, so that we could have a personal tie to all of you and help us remember that Veterans Day. That veterans, particularly here on Veterans Day. You know, one of the things we're also proud of here is this year we have our first female inductee into the Crete Carrier Schaefer Trucking Patriot Fleet fleet of trucks. You know, things have changed for women in the service also. I was looking back 40 years ago, only 2.3% of all veterans were women. Today it's almost 9.5% of all veterans are women. And according to the Department of Defense, women make up 20% of the Air Force, 19% of the Navy, 15% of the Army, and almost 9% of the Marine Corps. So I think it's very fitting today that we're proud to add Julie as our first female driver to Patriot Fleet. So thank you, Julie, and congratulations. So to Julie and all other members of the Patriot Fleet, I'm going to commit myself again to try to remember you each and every day throughout the year. Remember for all the service you've done for our country and for all the other veterans have done. And I say happy Veterans Day to all of you and to all of our other veterans out there. I say we respect you, we honor your service, and thank you for a job well done. And I'll turn it over to Tonn Ostergard for some additional comments on the Patriot Fleet.
Thank you, Tim. And can everybody hear me? Great. And thanks to everybody gathered here today for this great event. You know, it's quite remarkable when I read through the biographies of each of you and the outstanding service that you provided and the achievements that you made. It's frankly quite humbling. And I would say for me personally, I felt unworthy to actually be in your presence when I think of Bronze Star recipients and the things you did to provide us all the opportunities that we have. So I am deeply humbled and proud at the same time to have you such a vital part of the Crete team. As the sign here says behind you, over 1,400 military vets call Crete, Schaefer, and Hunt home. And I think that does reflect our commitment to the military. I was watching some Veterans Day commemorations this morning, and it's still interesting the amount of celebration that goes on around the country. In New York today, I think they had the 100th anniversary of the Veterans Day parade. I'm glad that they've continued that tradition of 100 years of that parade in New York City. But some of the comments made, I think General Petraeus said this morning, you know, oftentimes we've talked about that it's the right thing to do to hire military veterans when they return to private life. But what he said more importantly than it's the smart thing to do. It's not just the right thing, it's the smart thing. And the reason it's the smart thing is the quality of people that you all represent and the quality of the work level that you provide. And I think it's by no coincidence that 1,400 military vets are within our ranks, and I think that speaks highly to the quality of the organization we have. It's embedded in our culture, and I think even those of us who aren't directly military share that same respect and reverence for the military. So I think that's a big part of our culture, and you're a part of that. What's interesting, since we started this program in 2012 in Crete, we've commissioned 30 Patriot Fleet drivers. Today will be the 35th. And of that original 30, over 90% of them are still with us. So that reflects an incredible level of retention. With Hunt, 80% of the drivers that have been commissioned as a Patriot Fleet are still with us. So that again reflects that stability, that commitment to service, and longevity that I think again speaks highly to. It's not only right but very smart to provide military veterans an opportunity once they've left service. So with that, it's just my honor to say thank you today. I am deeply humbled and very, very proud of what each of you represent. And so with that, I just want to say thank you.
In the United States, you're 1%. That is U.S. military veterans between all personnel in the United States. In Crete, you have a third of the employees are veterans. And you form that family. So it does not matter who you are with the company. It matters that you are a Patriot Fleet member.
You know, me being a veteran, I like working for people that appreciate veterans and the military service.
Since the Patriot Fleet program began back in 2012, more than 30 veterans have been chosen to drive custom Patriot Fleet trucks. But the Patriot Fleet doesn't stop with the men behind the wheel. In fact, all drivers, office and shop employees who have served in the military are considered members of the fleet.
For years, I wore the U.S. military uniform with the flag on the right shoulder. Well, at Crete, we wear the flag on the left shoulder with the year that we employ, which mine was 1994.
Colin Lee is a parts coordinator and a very proud member of Crete's Patriot Fleet.
They created that family within the Crete family. As you get more pride, you get better work, because you have pride in yourself. You have pride in your family. You don't want to let your family down. You don't want to let your Patriot Fleet family or your Crete family down.
Crete Carrier Corporation employs more than 6,000 people all across America, and nearly 1 out of every 3 of those employees are veterans of the United States military.
I think veterans are given every opportunity to succeed and to grow and to try new avenues of Crete Carrier every day.
Roger Munt is a Crete Carrier asset manager and a veteran of the U.S. Army National Guard. Roger says the Patriot Fleet falls in line perfectly with what Crete founder Dwayne Ackley believed.
Dwayne was 100% behind the military and the veterans of this country. He was a very big patriot. He believed in what we were doing and felt that the men and women of this country, if they went and served their nation, that they deserve a fair chance when they come back.
Dina Trader is an asset manager and a veteran of the U.S. Air Force.
I think it's pretty nice how they have everything set up. Just amazed by the semis as well, how they've got them decorated. Every new one that comes in here, I make sure I take a picture of it. It's something that's an honor.
Man, it's really awesome. We didn't know how the trucks are going to look like. And we saw the tracks and just an awe.
Kurt Seaman was one of the 5 original Patriot Fleet drivers that were honored to take the wheel of the very first custom trucks back in 2012. Kurt says his highly visible camo-covered truck has been a great conversation starter with fellow truck drivers.
They'll come up to you, want to take pictures of the truck and ask you about your service, and of course, start talking about Crete, how wonderful they are to the drivers and how they really appreciate us out here.
I've had veterans go by, give me thumbs up going down the highway. I've had police officers salute me.
Roy Rayford vividly recalls the day that he was handed the keys to his very own Patriot Fleet truck.
It just made me proud. I was proud already driving for this company because, I've worked for a few companies in my career, and this is the best company I've ever worked with.
I joined the Army in October of 19 1984, and I joined to be a truck driver. I wanted to get the training to be a truck driver. It's what I always wanted to do.
Jim Krieger was rewarded for his service to his country and Creek Carrier Corporation with the opportunity to drive a Patriot Fleet truck.
It's an awesome feeling driving this truck down the road, getting the toots of the horn and the calls on the CB of what an awesome looking truck this is. And we exchange stories about their service or maybe their family member's service that they had, and I tell them a little bit about mine, and it just puts a great big smile on my face that I get all the support from the motoring public. They really honor and respect the hard work, dedication, and discipline that military members bring to the team. And by them offering these Patriot Fleet trucks to only 5 members a year shows that, you know, they recognize the hard work and dedication that these drivers have and want to honor them in some kind of way for their service.
The Patriot Fleet logo means a lot to Jim.
It means that I'm part of a special fleet within Creek Carriers, and I'm a representative of Creek out there on the highway and in the truck stops, and I want to portray the best message that I can for a Creek Carrier.
Jim and Roy salute the newest members of the Patriot Fleet driving team.
You've been selected as the cream of the crop, and you represent Creek and all the military veterans that serve with Creek Carriers. Congratulations.
You guys are in for some exciting times.
Let's get those excited times started. Let's get Isaac up here to talk to us a little bit about how our driver selection process for the Patriot Fleet and to introduce the Patriot Fleet members.
Thank you and good morning. Great video to really outline the history of the Patriot Fleet and to set up our 5 candidates that we've selected this year. Just a little bit of history on the Patriot Fleet. Some of this has been touched on already, but today we'll mark 35 Patriot Fleet wrapped trucks on the road. We've participated in many different events throughout the year, whether that be a variety of parades, Race Across America, VA festivals, retirements and graduations, different holiday events, truck shows, and school visits, among others. The nomination process is tough every year. We get nominees from fleet managers, from asset managers, drivers out there on the road that run into their fellow men and women in trucks that really leave a good spot in their minds, and they call us and put us on the nominee list. And when we look at that list every year, we try to find someone from each branch to represent. We look at miles with the company, years of service with not only Crete and Schaefer, but also years of service in the military, and try to find a nice blend. Even though it's tough to narrow it down to the 5 recipients each year, we feel like we really hit the cream of the crop again this year and couldn't be prouder of these 5 as our newest additions to the Patriot Fleet. So without further ado, our first recipient joined the Air Force after high school for 6 years from 70 to 76. After he completed basic training in Texas, he started on B-52s and C-5s in California, transporting troops and supplies. He continued in Vietnam, focusing on picking up orphans and social workers. After working for 5 years as a civilian, he re-enlisted in the Army from 81 to 87 and was deployed in Germany for 3.5 years of that time. He and his wife Sheila moved to Nebraska in 1988, where they had 4 children and 8 grandchildren. He started in Creek Carrier in 1988, accruing over 4.5 million miles, has been a driver trainer since 2005, and was Company Driver of the Year in 2011. In his spare time, he enjoys attending car shows, truck shows, walking, and just spending time with his family, some of whom are here today. If you would stand as I call your name. Wife Sheila, daughters April and Stephanie, son-in-laws Jeff and Heath, and daughter-in-law Monica. Without further ado, our first recipient, Steve Buttrick. Steve, I'll let Winston present the keys to you if you want to say a few words.
Can I get you one more time? Maybe. Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Would like to say a few words?
I got maybe a small little story. How about the kitchen one? No? Okay. She's telling me I have to sit down.
Tell the story. Tell the story. We want to hear it.
Been out for a while. Decided to come back to the house. And the first thing she wanted to do is take me someplace I haven't been to for a long time. So she gets dolled up. I take her outside, back into the house, into the kitchen, sit her down, and she looks at me, "What are you doing?" I start pulling pots and pans out, and I don't remember anything after that. I woke up in the hallway.
Our next recipient joined the Army out of high school in 1977 and spent 23 years total in the service, retiring in 2000, serving as an E7 in air defense. He spent 5 years stationed in Germany, which is his favorite location during the service. He started driving in 2000 and started driving with Creek Carrier in 2006. He's driven over 2 million miles and recently received his 10-year Safe Driving Award with the company. Married to wife Catherine for 38 years, they reside in Georgia and have 3 children, Alan, Eldridge, and Marcus, along with 9 grandchildren. In his downtime, he enjoys jazz music, good barbecue, and just enjoying life. Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Cadell.
Well, I'm gonna say something short and sweet. I'm not big on a big speech, but I'm honored to have be nominated for the Patriot Trust. And where I live, which is on Fort Stewart, it would be well organized.
Congratulations. Our next recipient joined the Army in 1988, where he served for 23 years, completed basic training in Fort Knox, and upon completion he was stationed in Fort Bragg and eventually deployed in Korea. In Korea, he had the distinction of shooting the top tank in the squadron and received the Army Achievement Medal. After Korea, he was assigned to the 2nd Armored Division at Fort Hood, Texas. During that time, he was also deployed to Saudi Arabia for Desert Storm and was given numerous service medals, including Kuwait Liberation Medal, Overseas Service, National Defense and Southwest Asia Service Medals. And upon completion of active duty, he joined the North Carolina National Guard. Married to wife Tamara for 22 years, they have 2 daughters, Ashley and Anika, and 1 grandson, Blake. In his spare time, he enjoys fishing, building model tanks, and St. Louis Cardinals baseball. He received a CDL in 1998 and has only worked for 3 companies. He joined Creek Carrier in 2011 and has been a driver trainer with us since 2012. He's driven over 2.5 million miles and recently received his 8-year Safe Driving Award with the company. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Starling.
I don't have anything to say. Thank you. Thank you for the nice equipment. It's been a pleasure to work here, and I look forward to continue working here. Thank you, and represent the Patriot Fleet. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Our next recipient joined the Army in 1977, where she served 11 years, specializing in fixed communications, and had several tours, including West Fort Hood, Texas, 2 tours in Germany, and 2 in Washington, D.C., including the Pentagon and the Army Material Command. She completed her service as a Sergeant E5. After her service in the Army, she worked for various DoD contractors from 1988 to 2014 as an executive assistant. She began her driving career in 2014 and joined Creek Carrier shortly after in 2015, driving over 500,000 safe miles at the Walmart distribution center. She has 2 dogs, a 6-year-old boxer, Lily, and a 1-year-old mini Dotson. Her hobbies include cooking and surfing the web for that perfect retirement RV. Ladies and gentlemen, Julie Shabbat.
I just want to say thank you for the honor, the double honor, being nominated for the Patriot Fleet, and also the first woman on the fleet. Thank you.
And last but not least, our next recipient served 21 years total, 6 years in the Marines, 9 years in the Army, and 6 years active duty in the Nebraska National Guard. In fact, his family has spent over 119 years serving our country in various branches. During his service, he was stationed in many places, including Fort Bliss, Texas, 2 years in Germany, in the Marines Corps in Yuma, Arizona, Okinawa, Japan, Fort Still, Oklahoma, 1 year in South Korea, and the Nebraska National Guard here in Lincoln, where he spent time working on counter narcotics and was deployed to Iraq twice. Finally retired in 2008. His awards include Bronze Star, various achievements and commendations, GWOT Expedition and Service Medal, Iraq Campaign Medal with 4 campaign stars, Humanitarian Service Medal for Katrina relief, among others. Married 27 years to wife Diane. They have 6 children and now reside in Sherrill, Oklahoma. During his downtime, his hobbies include riding Harleys, cuisine, and are both active members of their church. Joining him today are his Pastor Jesse and his wife, or his daughter Debbie, his driving instructor from Southeast Community College, Mike Keebler, his daughter Tasha, and her husband Eric, brother Jody, and his wife Lori, and grandkids Audrey, Greg, and Yurje. If you'd stand, please. Sam Simonton, congratulations.
Don't have a lot to say, no funny stories. I just want to thank the good Lord above for bringing me home twice and my family. Thank you.
Let's give all 5 another round of applause, please. So before we close today, there's one other honorary Patriot Fleet truck that we received earlier this year, and I think we might have a photo of that that we're going to show. So earlier this year, we were honored by Freightliner to receive one of their Ride of Pride trucks, and it is the truck commemorating the 75th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. And we're proud to have our driver, Brian Puff, receive that award along with Winston and me earlier this year in North Carolina. Brian has done us all well, served us all well going across the country, not only doing his job day to day as a truck driver, but also using that truck to remind people about that great moment, that great day, where it was the beginning of the end of World War II and that commemorative truck. In fact, this weekend he was in some Veterans Day parades, and is the reason why he couldn't be here today. So great honor to have that truck as well. So with that will conclude our ceremonies. I just want to say a few closing remarks here. First off, thank you to Dave Snitley, Lance Schwartz, Brad Penner, and the whole marketing team on helping arrange this, and certainly make today's ceremony as special as it is for these fine recipients. I'd also like to thank Tonn Ostergard and Winston Ostergard for support, and the entire Ostergard family for continuing to support the Patriot Fleet and having a company that supports veterans across the country. You know, as I was looking to close out today, I looked back and saw a quote from President Ronald Reagan when he was recognizing veterans in 1983. He said, "Veterans know better than anyone else the price of freedom. They have suffered the scars of war. We can offer them no better tribute than to protect what they have given us." So in the spirit of President Reagan's words, I offer two challenges out there to us. First of all, I think a challenge particularly fitting for our times. Let's honor those veterans by being good neighbors, good citizens, and good Americans, being active in our communities and working with each other to make America an even greater place. Let's teach our children what it means to have the freedoms we have today, to be the greatest country in the world, the greatest country of all times, because of these veterans. You know, as part of that, yesterday I took my children to the movie Midway. It's about the epic battle in World War II. It was the battle that turned the Pacific Theater, in the tide in the Pacific Theater when the United States Naval Air Force in particular, but the naval forces were able to sink 4 Japanese carriers in the Battle of Midway. And I thought it was very important to take them there to see the sacrifices that the men and women had made to help turn that tide, and their fearlessness and their courage and their willingness to do whatever it took to win. And so when I got home, I thought, I want to learn more about some of these gentlemen. And as I looked up people like Dick Best and others that were part of that battle, I found 2 things that were common as to why they fought. They said, "I fought because I wanted to protect the freedoms of the United States and to honor those that had fought before us. And then I fought because I didn't want my children or my grandchildren or all of you to have to fight." So I really do think that it would be a great honor if we took a challenge today to go out and teach our children and our grandchildren what it means to have so many veterans that have come before us and fought for our freedoms and to continue to make our nation the greatest nation in the world. And the second challenge is one that I've been challenged by many of our Patriot Fleet members out there, and that is to honor Red Fridays. So a little bit about Red Fridays. You know, we have people in this room who have children currently deployed in the armed services across the country. And RED stands for Remember Everyone Deployed. And so it's a challenge that all of us, when we get up on Friday mornings, we can do one little thing. Let's wear something red on Fridays to remember all of those deployed. So that's our second challenge to all of you, and I thank those Patriot Fleet members who have challenged me with that. So finally, I would just like to say thank you all for attending. Thank you. You know, one of the things I thought about is at lunch today when I was sitting with these fine recipients, they were talking about the military and what it's like, and the one thing that came across and flowed right over into trucking, it says to be successful in the military, you said you had to have 2 things, teamwork and communication. And I think that's very true in trucking, and I know that's why you're all successful in trucking. So I'd like to thank all the other Creek Carriers, Schaefer Trucking, and Hunt family members that support all our Patriot Fleet members, because with their teamwork and the communication amongst all of us, that's why we're so successful. I would like to thank all of the Patriot Fleet members across the nation for continuing to serve our country, making deliveries every hour of every day, 365 days a year. You still are contributing to the great economy, the free economy that we have in this great nation. And finally, one last time, congratulations again to all of our Patriot Fleet members. Thank you.